Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a video for you about this little guy right here. This is the Topaza, or Topaza, by Avian Knives, which is an interesting little piece, and actually something a little bit different and unique. I've been really struggling in the knife market lately by not seeing a whole lot that was, well, off the beaten path. This is, so that's why I want to talk a little bit about it. But first off, I want to let you know, this guy was loaned my way by the manufacturer. Avian Knives reached out to me, said, "Hey Nick, you want to check this guy out?" And I said, "Yeah, actually, that is pretty interesting. It is pretty different." So they did send this guy along. It is a pre-production prototype sort of thing, so we do have to assume this is the very best quality controlled one of these guys ever. And I'm doing my best not to let that affect the nature or the quality of my review. But nonetheless, that's what we got going on here. And of course, caveat emptor, right? This is a pre-production sort of thing. Hopefully it's going to get better. But, you know, who knows? Maybe they screwed him up. Well, we'll see. But anyways, that's a thing, and this will be going along to somebody else. Actually, I think Advanced Knife Bro, who, if you're not following his stuff on the YouTubes already, you should probably do that. But anyways, we're going to do the usual sort of thing for the channel here, or at least the usual lately, and take this little guy apart, and then go ahead and talk a little bit about what I thought about it in my carrying of it. It is a very simple knife in many ways, right? You have a screw here, which is the same screw as for, well, okay, it's two different screws, but same location as the clip screw, and then you got a pivot. Then this guy, I assume, is holding in the lock bar insert, but you don't really have to mess around with that. It also has a keyed pivot on this side, which is a beautiful thing. So let's go on ahead and see, maybe T8? Hopefully T8. That'd be nice. Yeah, T8. All right, we'll go ahead and take this out here. So yeah, this is kind of cool, right? The goal kind of stated is that free spinning. No, it's not. All right, just a little gritty at first. Maybe the screw itself is dirty, so we'll put the pivot over here, put that guy there, and the knife has come apart. But the stated goal of this guy is to be incredibly lightweight, and they've succeeded, right? But the way they've done that is with massive, massive amounts of internal milling, skeletonization, kind of the ISO pattern going on here. That's pretty cool. You know, it's neat, it's different, right? And that's the one thing that is absolutely missing from most best techs, and this is, by the way, going to be produced by the best tech. But nevertheless, it's one of the things that's really missing in the knife market right now. There are a million designers, a million companies, a million people making something with a random Chinese factory, and very, very few of them are actually unique or different. Right, and this actually is, and that's, again, why it ended up on my table, as opposed to most of them where it's just like, okay, that's certainly another knife. It's probably great. It's probably really nicely done, but it's not remarkable. This, you know, I don't know that it's, actually, I'll say it is pretty remarkable. It's not like, oh my god, this is the thing, you know, the next greatest thing. It's not so far off the beaten path. It's just bringing lightness to a logical conclusion. But they've done enough things right here that I felt like it merited some discussion here on the channel, even as I, yeah. So, anyways, construction is very simple. We do see washes here, which is a nice thing. We do see nice, you see some pocketing on the blade, which is another way that we can get this guy thinner. Right? It's just a really, really thin little knife. Price on this guy is $295. Which ain't cheap, obviously, but at the same time, it's pretty unique, all things considered. There's a lot of machining in this, so you know what? I feel like that's actually pretty reasonable. Blade here is going to be a Magna Cut, which I think at this stage is both very deeply hyped and very competent as steel. So it's kind of like, well, you know, hey, you win some, you lose some, right? There's actually a fair amount of slop in the pivot hole in this prototype. I think it'll actually, yeah, it calms down a bit once it's actually seated in the groove on the back side here. But it feels like maybe this should be going a little bit deeper, but then again, this is also a very thin design. So the pivot actually sticks out a fair amount, which is kind of funny. But anyways, let's go on ahead. And by the way, if you're curious about any of the tools I'm using, nickshabazz.com/tools, but I'm using some knife pivot lube here, original version. Dropping a little bit on there, as well as onto the pivot itself. Go ahead and put a bearing down there. Bearings are tiny, absolutely tiny. But that makes sense, again, from the perspective of keeping this guy thin. Absolutely. Go ahead and put a little bit more lubrication on there. There's really not a whole lot else for us to do here, so I'll continue putting this guy together, and I'm kind of making the choice to put it together from this side. Go ahead and put a little bit of lubrication in your detent ball hole and area here. I'm over lubricating it, but that should surprise no long-time viewers. That's just my vibe. But anyways, so we got that there. We do have a lock bar insert with an over-travel stop, which is nice, especially given the thinness of this lock bar. It could be very easy to accidentally overextend. And the lock bar insert itself is a nice thing as well. Not a hard requirement necessarily. We lived a long time with carbonized lock faces and things like that, but you know what? Sure doesn't hurt. All right, so let's go ahead and put this guy back together. I'll go ahead and start off by seating the pivot screw again. Oh, I should probably clean it off. I do like the fact that both the screws here are T8. That's nice. T8 is a decent size, and the same size for both feels good. That's nice. All right, so I'll clean that off. Almost feels a little loose. Maybe it could be T9 or just a little loose. Either way, T8 seems to be working fine. So I put a little thread locker on a stick there, and now I'm going to kind of get it in there, and I'm struggling to seat it, so I'm going to go backwards until it kind of pops up and falls in, which is a good little trick here. Then I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to unlock the knife. You can see here this is spun the wrong way, so I need to get in here and rotate it until it spins the correct way. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten it down some. Not like, oh my god, but just like until I feel some resistance. This will put things in a better position for me to then put the back screw in here. And hopefully we should be about done. Nice and easy. Go ahead and put a little bit more thread locker. Well, not more, but put some thread locker on there. And go ahead and screw into that. Okay, so I've screwed that in. Now let's go on ahead and tighten up the pivot a little bit more. And let's see where we're at action-wise. Okay, we have no blade play. Good action. Dead centered. Yeah, we're done here. Lovely. That was easy. I will take it, right? In many ways, what's kind of interesting is despite the construction outwardly seeming pretty exceptional with the incredible skeletonization and whatnot, the actual knife itself, the guts of it, so to speak, are not exceptional at all. It goes together just like any other titanium frame lock. And that's kind of good, right? It can't hurt, right? All right, so what do I think about it? I've kind of talked about it a little bit, but I think the thing that's interesting about this knife is largely the lightweightitude. Just to give you a sense of that, I should probably throw it on a scale, right? So we're looking here at, let's see here, I want to say, yeah, a little under 3 1/4 inches, about 8 centimeters of blade length exactly here, which is a lovely thing. And we're getting that done in 1.64 ounces. That's light. That is incredibly lightweight, right? They have removed every bit of material that they can here, and the result of it is actually a knife that doesn't feel like I've held really lightweight knives that feel crappy, but like I'm putting some torque on this guy, right? I can bend it a little bit, and it doesn't really feel like anything's out of whack. Right? I mean, I can bend it around a little bit more. Is it going to be as solid as something that is a giant solid chunk of titanium? No, absolutely not. If you're looking for something to be betoning into wilderness logs, as opposed to urban logs, I don't know, or log files. Either way, then this probably isn't the right choice, but if you're looking for something that is incredibly thin, and also reasonably done, well, you know what, this ain't such a bad choice. In terms of thinness, come here, where's my thinness exemplar? No, that's not it. There are a couple of other options that are also quite thin. Where are you? The Benchmade Narrows comes to mind, but for the several, I want to say 600, 500 bucks. Yeah, no, not so much. So it's not quite as thin as that. And similarly, this here is the Real Steel Real Slim. I think it's actually discontinued, which is kind of a shame. But nevertheless, this is actually a thinner knife. But this feels a little bit more substantial, and it has sort of, this feels like a full-size knife. The ergonomics on it actually are fairly nice as well. You get a little bit of hot spotting off the ISO holes here and whatnot, but at the end on the back of the clip. But by and large, this feels pretty good in the hand. Right, I can't really complain too much about that. Action is very solid. I like the action a fair bit. There's really, let me see, let me look at my list of things to complain about. Yeah, there's really not all that much to complain about. The steel, like I mentioned, is MagnaCut. At this point, MagnaCut is a little bit hypey. Let's just be real here. But at the same time, it is a very, very nice solid steel, and it works pretty damn well for a lot of things. Because this is all titanium, it should also be relatively water resistant and rust resistant as well. So that's kind of a nice thing. A couple of things did bother me a little bit. The flipper tab on this guy, if we take a look at that, it is a little bit on the sharper side. It makes sense that you want it to be sharp to kind of grab on. Oh boy, that was a little spicy. Didn't get me, but ooh. So that is of course one of the downsides of any frame lock is that the blade, your thumb is in the slicing path, and with this flipper tab being right here, it's very easy for you to kind of catch your thumb against that flipper tab, which is a little bit on the sharper side, and then as you push past it, suddenly it lets go and goes woo and comes down, gives you a little kiss. Right? Not the end of the world necessarily, but this is a knife where you really kind of want to be choked back a little bit further when you unlock it, as opposed to a lot of frame locks where you can kind of just jam your thumb in the middle there and it'll do the trick. But the flipper tab is a little bit on the sharp side. It's not the most comfortable thing for fidgeting with for hours and hours and hours. That's not a reasonable, sane human sort of complaint, but it is certainly one can make. The other thing that is a little bit frustrating here is actually the clip. You can see here there's a lot of stuff going on in the clip area here. The clip itself actually has a fairly low amount of pressure here, but it's surrounded by a bunch of high friction areas. So it's surrounded by these guys here, it's surrounded by these guys here. And so as a result, getting this into and out of your pocket feels a little bit like... That's the technical term. It keeps grabbing on all of these little things in there. Is it the end of any worlds? No, not really. It does arguably keep the knife more secure, but I kind of wish they had done a little bit more thinking in terms of, ways to remove material that wouldn't have the clip over such a jagged area. Right? It's going to wear on your pocket much more than it's going to wear on the knife, but, pants are pants, and they ain't necessarily cheap. So that's one of the downsides with it, and if I were looking for a 2.0, I would probably want more smoothness in the area under the clip, and then take some more material out somewhere else. Balance-wise, this guy is actually pretty well designed. It's balancing right where you would expect, and I think they've done that by having very thin blade stock with a very thin grind, so it does balance out nicely. But that was one of my worries when you see something like this that's so heavily skeletonized. Sometimes it ends up being like the blade just like thump, pulls it down. Again, technical term, thump. And so as a result, you end up with something that's just not as nice to use. But honestly, this is kind of cool, right? Is this going to be the right choice for a lot of people? Probably not, right? If you're looking for something that is lightweight and relatively thin among, as the biggest kind of constraint, yeah, it's a decent choice. And for $295, yeah, you're paying a bunch of money, right? You can get better knives. You can get better, well... Okay, you can get better knives if the lightness and thinness isn't a requirement for much less money than that, right? For that money, you could pick up something, made someplace else very, very easily. That would be a one-and-done sort of knife. This isn't the cheapest good knife by any stretch, but it is a very, very lightweight knife, and it is a good-feeling knife. This prototype here it's made well. It feels like it is a luxury object, so to speak, and it looks really cool. It's a pretty interesting piece. So is this something that I'm going to buy? No, not ultimately, I don't think. I think I've got a lot of cool knives, and this is nice, it's light, it's cool, but it's not something that I'm going to go out of my way for, because for me, lightweightness isn't the biggest factor. If I were Actually, if I were a backpacker out in the freaking wild and I needed something to carry, I don't know that this would be my choice because I probably wouldn't want to be doing wilderness stuff with this guy. But if for whatever reason you are in a situation, maybe you're a helicopter pilot and every ounce counts, I don't know, right? But if you need something, he says, making something up wildly. Helicopter pilots, let me know if the weight of your pocket knife is meaningful for you in your daily life. Anyways, I digress. But this is something that could be relevant and could be interesting for somebody who has that very specific need of incredibly lightweight. For everybody else, it's a solid little knife. I'm sure you'd probably enjoy it, but I don't know that it's worth going the extra mile here and going for this design with those compromises in terms of tab sharpness, difficulty getting in another pocket, and of course paying $300 for a Bestech. All of those things, those are prices you pay in exchange for the incredible lightness here. So, anyways, there you go. That's my thoughts here on the Topaza. It's not a bad knife, and it's unique. It's different, and I really do applaud Avian Knives for doing weird stuff. Both of their pieces, one that was a disassemblable without any tools, and then they're trying different things. They're trying something unusual, and that's not something you see very often, and that is something I very much do appreciate. So, anyways, there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of the day, and I hope that this little avian is going to fly off the shelves for them. Yeah, there you go. Have a good one. Bye now.